He felt sick, as he always did before presentations. Not that he particularly disliked public speaking, but apparently wanting to throw up was part of his process. Focus, your public speaking skills got you here. They can get you further, he thought as the podium approached. Well, you could have prepared. This is not the kind of thing you wing, he mused, smiling and shaking the principal's appendage, now facing what he assumed was the entire academy. Marcus took a deep breath and began to speak. Hello, my name is Marcus, and I'm a human. As I'm sure you've heard by now, we humans come from a death world. I'm not entirely sure of the classification, as I'm admittedly as curious about all of you as many of you are about me, so I've spent my time trying to learn. But I'm getting off track. My planet is called Earth. He paused and looked at the students in front of him. Some anxious, some curious, some on what he assumed were the alien equivalent of telephones, and some absolutely fixated on his every word. Best to make a good impression then, he thought. Took another breath and continued. Earth is a beautiful planet and extremely diverse. It has several different biomes, such as the Amazon rainforest, a vast tropical jungle that occupies about 25% of its continent's total area, and the Sahara Desert, which is about the same size but on a completely different continent. There are also large plains and mountainous areas. If you can handle the high gravity, about twice the galactic standard, I highly recommend a visit. Oh, the oceans. I'm going off topic again. Sorry, he said with a smile, which he immediately realized was a mistake, as some of the closer students fainted at the sight of his teeth. Some were completely frozen, and what he assumed was either pallor or very poor camouflage. Holding back a smile, he continued, I can see that some of you are confused, so let me explain. That was a smile, a human sign of affection, happiness, contentment, or just a friendly gesture. Humans are very social creatures. He looked at the unconscious students. Is no one going to do anything? And we usually form very strong bonds with those we consider friends. He started to look around, trying to catch someone's eye, and discreetly signaled that some people had fainted, but it seemed that now everyone was mesmerized in looking at him. Okay, keep the smiles to a minimum. That's a fun thought. Realizing that his pause had been far too long and dramatic, he finally said, I'm sorry, but I think they need some help. He pointed in the general direction of the front row. Marcus decided to stay on stage after he'd managed to knock out several people with a smile. He didn't think it would do them any good to see him up close. Besides, that wall over there is very interesting. He started walking towards a nearby wall, which was actually very plain, white and featureless, but curiosity was a better look than embarrassment. 5 minutes, man. It didn't even take 5 minutes. Looking at the wall proved fruitful, as he had just noticed that the ceiling was much higher than normal. He'd been warned that humanity was a bit on the small side, but the ceiling was 20 feet high. Maybe it's just here. After all, we are in an auditorium. Then the silence hit him. He'd been staring at that wall for a long time. He chuckled, thinking that the wall was indeed very interesting, but put a stop to it. No more smiling today. He made his way back to the podium and tried to estimate the average height of his classmates, and was sure that he'd be the shortest. Then he noticed that some of the seats were empty, but not all of those who had fainted had left. There were a few faces that, although very pale, were paying close attention to him. Great, I didn't prepare anything again, damn wall. Let's start with an apology and see where it goes, he muttered to himself. He looked around for a moment, preparing to speak, his stomach churning and making him feel nauseous again. I am truly sorry. That display was in no way meant as a threat or anything like that. Smiling is in our nature. He began trying to clear the air. And as I said, Earth is a very diverse planet. We have animals native to every single biome, even the poles, penguins at the South Pole, and even some bears in the Arctic. Realizing that no one here could possibly know what a penguin or a bear was, and realizing that he was the only one who knew, he decided to change his approach. They weren't just listening. They were watching, waiting for something to happen. Well, I don't think my words could possibly do justice to what I want to convey about Earth, but I'm sure I can show pictures to anyone interested in the future. Now, I would like to open the floor for any questions you may have. There was a moment of silence, almost too long, before someone finally spoke. "Are you the only human here?" asked a small bird-like creature who stood on her seat to be seen better. "So far, yes, I am. In fact, right now, I hold the title of being the most distant human from Earth in all of history, but that's just a coincidence. Apparently there are human exchange students in several schools throughout the galaxy. This one just happens to be the furthest away. I'm sure there will be more of us coming over if all goes well. So let's keep this little incident our little secret, shall we? How fast can you run?" asked a gravelly voice belonging to a large crimson reptile. He didn't stand up. "Not very fast, actually. My personal best is about 14 miles per hour. But our fastest runners can probably reach 40 to 45 miles per hour, though not for very long. We're not really built for that kind of sustained speed," Marcus explained. The next question came quickly. "Are you carnivorous?" Marcus was almost stunned by the appearance of the questioner, who looked like a giant rodent. He literally looks like a giant bipedal hamster. No, actually we're predators. And most of us consume a lot of meat, but we're actually omnivores. We eat pretty much anything that doesn't kill us right away. For example, we have a dish called manisoba, which has to be cooked for 9 days before it becomes poisonous. Some people say 3 days is enough, but better safe than sorry, Marcus said with a shrug. "So you really eat poison?" the giant hamster asked again, intrigued. "Well, not because it is poisonous most of the time anyway. It's just that many plants and some small animals have evolved to be poisonous, to be less of a target." "That hasn't stopped us," he explained. The next question came from someone further away. A golden silhouette with a humanoid form that made it difficult to see detailed features. "How do you hunt?" The silence after this question was palpable, while Marcus thought about the best way to answer. "Well, assuming you mean primitive humans, there are 2 unique characteristics of our species. First, we have no fur, exoskeleton, or any real external protection," he explained, winching his arm to demonstrate the elasticity of his skin. "But thanks to that, we can sweat through our skin. Sweat is a secretion used to regulate temperature and replenish stamina, which effectively means we can keep going for very long periods of time if we pace ourselves." He was cautious about how the rest of his explanation would affect the audience, noticing that some of them were getting up and quietly leaving the room. He waited a moment before continuing. "As I said, humans are not very fast. In fact, most species on Earth can run much faster than humans, but they can't keep it up for long. So, what we used to do was chase something until it couldn't run, fight, or just keep up with its pack, and then finish it off with a rock or something, and bring it back to the rest of the group." The people looked mortified. He was pretty sure someone was sick because he heard what sounded like a cat vomiting. "Are there any animals that can run longer than humans?" asked the same golden silhouette. "No," he said confidently, though unsure, and continued. "The other thing that has worked in our favor is that because of our longer legs and shorter arms, our sense of balance is superior to most other species, including the other great apes. This means that we can throw things harder, faster, and more accurately than almost any other species. So when we made spears, that was pretty much it. After that, it became a question of how far and how hard we could throw things. Oh, I almost forgot. Humans like to form groups, and storytelling is commonplace in every human culture. Apparently, we learn better when it's in the form of stories, but I can only speak from personal experience. So when our ancestors hunted, they told stories about what animals they hunted and how they hunted them, and they were heroes for doing so. To this day, we have pictures of their exploits because they painted their world in the caves where they lived. Yeah, that's it. Talk about art and stories. Maybe they won't care. You just told them you can hit very hard from very far away and nothing can escape you. Yeah, that makes sense." After a few seconds of silence, he concluded that either no one had any questions or people just weren't expecting this answer. From the looks of it, he would bet on the latter. But it didn't matter anymore. He was tired, he was hungry, and most of all, he wanted to see how high he could jump in such low gravity. He hadn't had a moment alone since he arrived. "Well, I want to thank everyone for their attention. This has been a literal dream come true in many ways, and I'm looking forward to meeting all of you, and, I'm sorry again." She glanced at the director, who looked very lilac today, as opposed to her usual aubergine purple. Marcus was worried for a moment, but then she got up and started walking toward the stage at an uneven pace. Her anatomy was completely confusing to Marcus. All the context Earth animals had given him was useless in the galaxy at large, but the principal looked extremely alien. She had many tentacles, so many that counting them would require a rude stare. Her skin looked very wet, even though it wasn't, and the fact that she walked very dexterously on land while looking so much like a sea creature was truly bizarre to him. He shook her tentacle hand again and took a step back, trying to appear stoic and attentive, though in truth his mind was elsewhere, thinking about hamburgers to be exact. Would they have them here? Could he improvise one? Maybe he should learn to make bread. Okay, let's think of something else. I'm getting hungrier, he thought to himself. Scanning the room again, he began to pay more attention to the individuals. The large reptile had a small sail on the back of its head, and probably all over its back, though he couldn't see that at the moment. He noticed a couple of bird species, one of which had plumage that resembled pearlescent car paint. And of course there was the golden figure. They were far apart. He couldn't see their eyes, but he felt like he was being watched intensely. More than just the general curiosity of the crowd, which made him wonder, is it a predator perhaps? Trying to decide if attacking me is a good idea? Maybe, or maybe they just want to be friends. I just got here, but the herbivores seem very scared. As applause began, or gestures resembling applause given the variety of anatomies in the room, people began to leave. Some tried to glance at him discreetly, others stared openly, and nearly all were talking, an ensemble that quickly escalated beyond mere murmuring. Strangely, the golden one was nowhere to be seen, a conspicuous absence given the stark white walls and the fact that no one else in the room bore any resemblance to her. "Are you ready?" asked the soft voice of the director, who had waited patiently for him while he looked around. "Oh, yes, I'm sorry." "Ready for what exactly?" Marcus replied, relieved to see her return to her usual deeper shade. "Your accommodation should be ready by now. Given the information your government provided about the effects of low gravity on your species, some adjustments had to be made," she explained. Cool personal gym, he thought with a hint of excitement. "Thank you, ma'am. Low gravity can really mess us up," he admitted. "Indeed," the giant octopus agreed, her tentacles moving gently in what Marcus interpreted as a nod. They walked in silence for a while, navigating through a series of corridors. Every now and then the director would stop to point out a room and give a brief explanation of its purpose. Marcus was particularly intrigued by the reactor, curious why a school would need such a powerful power source, and the engineering lab, which was secured by large reinforced doors. Signs of serious research and development, he thought. But the place he was most curious about was the cafeteria. They hadn't stopped at any of these places. For now it was about memorizing the route for a future exploration, perhaps after a refreshing shower. After several turns, they finally reached his room. "This room is yours. We have also provided you with some exercise equipment. In addition, there is a research station, a telescreen, and a personal and portable RNC, which I am told is similar to what you call a tablet on Earth. If you have any questions, it should be able to assist you. I'll leave you now. For today, you must get everything in order, and tomorrow your training begins. Thank you, ma'am." "I've been looking forward to this," Marcus replied, his voice tinged with a mixture of excitement and nervousness.